Hey guys, so today I'm going to continue with our notes on Unit 1, our ecology unit. We are in Chapter 5 and we are going to talk about how populations grow. So we just finished talking about food chains and food webs and energy and how energy moves through a food chain. We have the 10% rule, so as it goes up, there's less and less available energy from in each different level. So primary consumers like grasshoppers, they only get about 10% energy from the things that they eat below them, which are primary producers or plants, and the rest 90% leave. So we're going to look at what happens when these different populations of secondary consumers or tertiary consumers, what happens when those populations change? What happens to the balance of our population? So one population, remember that is a number of different, or a bunch of individuals of the same species is a population. So if we take, right here, if we take a fish population, just a normal fish population, and we're going to look at how that population grows. So if it gets bigger or it gets smaller. So different things that affect our population growth are birth. So when you have more organisms being born, that can affect your population growth. So if you have a lot of birth, obviously that can increase it. So you have new individuals like little babies coming into the population, and that is going to make all of the fish, the number, go up. So that would increase it. We also have something called immigration with an I. Immigration means in, so I-N. So we have individuals of the same species that just come from somewhere else. Maybe they are coming along from a different stream, or they have to leave their old school of fish and now they're coming to their new school, whatever that might be. These are two ways that a population can grow or get bigger. You have new ones being born or new ones just coming in from somewhere else. And these are the two things that cause population to increase. Now, two things that cause populations to decrease are the opposite. You have deaths. So when an organism or an individual gets too old or gets sick or gets killed, and it dies. So that would obviously decrease our fish population when an individual dies. Another thing is called immigration. Immigration. It sounds very similar to immigration. Immigration and immigration. I don't know why they made it so difficult for us, but immigration, and I pronounce them both almost exactly the same. I try to make them sound different, but it is difficult for me, as it is for you, I'm sure. This is the opposite of immigration. Immigration means going in. Immigration, with an E, means they're leaving. Maybe they had a fight with their other fish friends and they just decide to leave. Maybe they get kicked out. We don't know. But that's when individuals just leave the population and go somewhere else for good, like for the rest of their lives. So these are two ways that it can leave. Good way to remember the difference between these is I for in, they're coming in. E for exit. E for exit, they're leaving. So you can think about if you have too many births and not enough deaths or not enough immigration, individuals leaving, then your population can get really, really, really big, right? It can maybe get too big. Or if you have too many organisms leaving or too many dying, maybe there's a disease that wipes out half of them, then you can really see how a fish population can go down so low, or one population go down so low. And if this happens too much, like what happened with the dinosaurs, well, certain types of dinosaurs, then you can become extinct if it happens over and over again, or if you have some sort of huge catastrophic event that causes your whole population to go away. So this slide shows the difference between immigration and immigration. I don't know how to say the difference between those. Immigration with an E and immigration with an I. I'm trying to play those again. There we go. So immigration with an E, exit. They're leaving a place of residence or habitat, like SpongeBob right here is leaving, looks like the Krusty Krab or the kid, or it looks like Mr. Krabs' office. He's leaving, so he is an immigrant leaving that place. And then you also have immigration, where you have like this little girl is running in and coming in. So that is immigration with an I coming in. Immigration, emigration. Maybe I'll say it like that. I go through this every single year when I teach this. So immigration with an I coming in, emigration, leaving, going out. Okay, so under ideal conditions with unlimited resources, a population will grow exponentially. And what that means is, like, if you have this little bacterium, so if you have lots of bacterium, if they're really happy and the environment is good, they've got a lot of food, then they're going to just explode. And we can see this really easily with bacteria because they reproduce really fast. You know, they're tiny little creatures, and they doesn't take a lot for them to be able to reproduce and double themselves. Remember, they reproduce through binary fission. So a little bacterium, binary fission, splits into two every couple hours. I think that they can reproduce. So if they're really happy, if the conditions are good, and they have everything that they need, then they're just going to double and double, 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 double. And that's called exponential growth. So you can see in this graph, it's shown by over time, the population is rapidly increasing. So get used to seeing graphs like this where you, we'll do more and more of these as well, where you need to get used to seeing graphs. Sorry guys, got interrupted there by the intercom. So get used to seeing graphs like this where you have population size over here, or the number of individuals, which would be, in this case, the number of bacteria. And you can see it's a lot because bacteria are tiny. And the time, so how they increase. So, starting at 0 or 1 individual over time will increase. So over a couple of hours, because like I said, they grow quickly and they can reproduce quickly, unlike, humans. So if you see a graph that goes shoo straight up like that, that's showing that over time you have this population that is just super happy and they are unlimited growth. So you have, in this case, it would probably be mostly births that are causing the growth to go up so high. So the birth of bacteria is greater than the death of bacteria. So when we have birth that is greater than death, then you have unlimited growth. You had unlimited growth to that population, okay? Not to say that the bacteria, there aren't some bacteria that are dying, because there probably are a couple, but the number of births, the number of new bacteria coming in and being born is so much greater than the 1 or 2 that are dying that it just way outweighs that. So you have the whole population grow exponentially. This graph shows our world population of humans. So remember I just said, humans don't reproduce very quickly. Well, that's in comparison to bacteria, which can reproduce after a couple of hours. But, humans, we aren't able to reproduce until, we reach puberty, and then most of us decide to not have a kid, if we can, until you get older, until you get into your 30s. So, and then even after that, so, there's a period of 20 to 30 years between another individual being born with humans. So our world population for humans growth throughout history is exponential growth. You have over, from the most primitive type of human, or, when the first Homo sapien was believed to have been, to have evolved a couple of million years ago, and over time, if you look at this graph, right, it has time and then billions of people. So over time, not that many, we're going along. Maybe we have some new civilizations. We have some new technology that has helped helped individuals live a little bit longer, get a little bit more food, make a few more babies, stay alive a little longer. So it's slowly increasing. It's pretty steady though, up until, a few hundred years ago. And then you had the Black Death or the plague, which represents that little divot, that little bump right there that goes down. Black Plague really in Europe took out, some people think almost like a half of the population in Europe, which Europe was mostly, Europe was very heavily populated at that time. So this shows that you have a little bit of that, but then as soon as, we kind of reach the industrial age, our population just skyrockets. So around the 1800s or so, it skyrockets. And obviously this shows 5 years into the future where we're going to be past 8 billion people living in the world. I almost said living in the United States. That would be crazy. Living in the world. Okay, and so you can see this. So our world is, and technology and resources have provided for humans to just absolutely explode, and our population is growing exponentially. So again, this means not that humans aren't dying, and I hate to be morbid, but in the middle of a global pandemic right now, we are experiencing that right now. We're experiencing hundreds of thousands of people that are dying in a very short amount of time. So not to say people aren't dying, but the reason that humans have been able to live and just really the human population just explode like this over time is because we're living longer. So you have more births and fewer deaths over a period of time. So really the modern age is what has helped people live so much longer. Medicine, the average age of someone has increased as well over a period of time. Whereas before, the average age of someone in 1000 AD maybe would have been in like their 50s. Maybe if you lived to be 50, you were considered an elder and you were considered to be very old. But, or you got tuberculosis or something, you got something we can treat now. And, but back then you couldn't treat it because we didn't have modern medicine. Whereas today, something like tuberculosis doesn't really exist anymore. Something like smallpox doesn't really exist. Yes, I know we're talking about a global pandemic now. That, we'll have to see in a couple of years what that does to the world population. We don't know. But just to explain that right now. So when you have a population that grows exponentially and then starts to slow down or stop, you get something called logistic growth or logistical growth. This is a mathematical model. So you might have heard of log. Depending on what math you're in now, you might have heard of log or logarithm. That's what we're talking about with population size. So imagine that, all of our graphs should be over time, and the time is on the x-axis, and then the number of individuals is on the y. So over time we have, this period of exponential growth. So we have exponential growth. And then it starts to slow down. It reaches a point right about here where you can see that the line starts to level out. And so what happens is Well, a couple of things could be happening that cause the population to stop growing. But right here, usually what it is births are greater than deaths. And then right here, maybe it starts to level out. Maybe births are starting to equal deaths. So the number of births are starting to equal the number of deaths is what I was trying to say. Or it could be something else. There could be lots of limits to growth, lots of things that cause logistic growth. So again, it's when population has stopped growing, but individuals are still being born and dying. It's just that the rate of them are equal. It's reached equilibrium is another way you can say that. It's also reached something called carrying capacity. Carrying capacity. So carrying capacity is the maximum population of a given species that can survive in a specific environment. So if we look at this example right here of our goldfish, the carrying capacity is probably like 3 goldfish in one bowl, okay? Because they have things that they need. They need food, they need oxygen in the water, and they need space, okay? They need space to be happy, they need oxygen to breathe, and they need food to eat. But if you were to, so let's say our carrying capacity, they seem pretty happy right there. Maybe it's like 3, maybe it could be 5, I don't know, 3 to 5 individuals to be happy. If we look over here though, this is way too many, okay? We have fish that have, can't even fit, they don't have enough space. They definitely don't have enough oxygen in the water. We have some that have, had to fallen out and have died. They have gone over the carrying capacity of their environment. They have reached carrying capacity in their environment. So let's review real quick. Exponential growth is when it just grows up and up and up. We usually look at births and deaths, but we know that there could be immigration and immigration happening. So either births or immigration, or both, are greater than the deaths happening or the immigration happening. And that causes exponential growth. When you reach carrying capacity over here, that means they start to level out. And now your births are the number of births that are happening are going to be equal to the number of deaths. So not to say that when you've reached carrying capacity, organisms aren't still being born and organisms aren't still dying, but the number is starting to be equal. Versus here with exponential growth, births far outweigh, they're much greater than deaths. Maybe you have 1,000 births for every 1 death. So it kind of makes you think about overpopulation with our world, right? Makes you think about when I showed you that the graph here of human population. It's going out of control. It's crazy. Have we reached our carrying capacity? You think about things like pollution, climate change, global warming, same thing, diseases. And it makes you wonder, the fires that are happening, year after year, they're getting worse. Hurricanes year after year keep getting worse, all due to climate change. It makes you think about, has our world reached carrying capacity? For humans, we don't know. Only time will tell. And we will talk I'm ending it on this to kind of be dramatic. We are going to talk way more about this and the effects of human population next time.